Okay, so I'm just gonna finish getting this guy done before I pose him. As you can see, I kind of added some scales to the head so that when, or the skull inside the head, and so when I merge these two pieces together, they'll be a little more seamless. So back to the saddle, kind of where we were at. I'm just gonna start putting some lines, cut lines, and I want it to match the language of the armor that I've already established here so that they feel like they're from the same culture. So I'm essentially going to be putting rivets. So first thing I need to do is give this some geometry and start putting cut lines. Just kind of repeat what I've done to the top piece. And this will actually cut across right here because that's basically just going to be a strap. And I'm going to add some buckles to it. So again, we're probably not going to see too much of the top of the saddle, so I don't really need to get in there. I also wanted to put maybe a second line in here and a second row of rivets. So just add a little more to this top piece. Probably want to increase the geometry so I get a deeper cut, but that's okay because technically she's going to be sitting on top of this, and so we won't really see much of the detail. But you get the general idea. So I'm going to grab my standard, I'm going to turn my alpha off for a second and put dots. And again, just to kind of show you what I'm trying to match here is if we look again at our armor set, we can see that on these leather straps, particularly the belt and the chest piece, there's little rivets with lines on either side. So that's kind of what we want to mimic. So if we come back here, kind of what I'm thinking is that we'll have little indentations where the rivets will sit, and they can probably be a little bigger on the belt, or excuse me, the saddle than on the character's belt. Something like that. And then let's actually add some geometry to this really quick. So now it's up to about 200,000, and then we'll put rivets here as well. And maybe we'll make them so they're not exactly lined up with the bottom row, so kind of offset like so. And I do imagine this being all leather, so I probably will merge these two pieces together. Now when I export, if I want the rivets to be metal, I'll make those a separate subtool so that when I bring them into KeyShot, I can assign, metal to it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and merge these together. That way I don't have to delete lower subdivisions, and I can also just add rivets directly to it. So let's grab the bolt we were using with the gal. I actually don't think it's in here. Let's see. Because it is just the bolt head. Let's take a look one more time to just see what rivets we were using on her. Not the bolt head, okay. this guy right here. So I'm just gonna start plugging these in. Trim on the right. There we go. And these are gonna be a little bigger than the ones on her armor. And if I was rendering, let's say, a shot of the gal from a little closer up, the camera's a little closer to her, we would definitely see more detail on the saddle. But I imagine this will be shot from a distance where we'll be able to see the entire body of the creature, so we probably won't really see these as metal. So I don't necessarily have to separate them just yet. And then let's maybe throw a buckle on here. See how it looks. It's a little big. All right, and then I'm going to assume that there's another strap on here that's actually connecting to this buckle. So I'm going to draw that on. Try to keep the right angles a little straighter, something like that. Okay. And there's a couple ways I could do this. I could even just extrude directly out by pulling it and giving it a little bit of a cut like that. And again, we're not going to see this really up close, so I'm not super worried. It's more indicative at this point. I want to kind of add that cut line back into it. And if I really wanted to, I know this is more like a primitive armor, so I do want it to be somewhat simplified. I could go and add a more interesting silhouette to the saddle altogether, but I think that's good for now. All right. Okay, so we have basically blocked this guy out. He has his feet now. The saddle's basically to a point I'm happy with. So what I'm going to do next is just give him a little bit of a pose. So what I'm thinking is I'll put this back down to a low subdivision and basically just do the same masking that I've done in the previous posing lesson, where we use the compass to mask. Make sure and turn symmetry off, and I'm just going to give his legs a little bit of so in this case it might not work as well because I built this thing from scratch, so I might just kind of get as far as I can with it. I think that's somewhat decent. Okay, so we've got that back leg selected. Now let's blur our mask and let's tilt this leg back a little bit. Let's put that pivot right on the hip joint. Make sure that the little square is right where the hip goes, and let's bring that leg back just a little bit. And then maybe down a notch, something like that. And then I think another thing that we'll do is we'll come down here to the knee. Let's blur that mask a little bit and see if we can't get that leg a little bit straighter. Pull that down, and then I'm going to go to the ankle. Similar to the human pose, and I'm gonna tilt that forward just a little bit. Okay, and if I want to turn the ground on while I do this to help give me a way to help with the weight, I can do that. So I'm gonna grab the, whoops, turn that ground back off for a second. Grab these claws, and I'm gonna pull them back over to the foot and see how close I can get to just lining them up, because I haven't changed the foot too much. Go just a little bit like that. Just get those toes to match up as best we can, and don't worry if it's not lining up perfectly. We can always go in with our move tool and either correct by bending the toe back to the claw, something like that. So it is a subtle pose, but at least it gives it a little bit more life by having not just a static pose. So that's fine. Okay, I think I'm going to grab the tail. Blur it, and I'm going to start curving the tail. So mask, I'm going to look at it from kind of a top view, and I'm going to start curving it a little bit. Bring it here and curve it a little bit more. And I'm doing this rather than just using the move tool because I want to get kind of a significant bend. It's going to start bending quite a bit. Then I can, whoops, then I can go in and kind of correct it as I go. Normally when I do this too, I want to start playing with other planes, so not just bending it from the top view, but also having it start to kind of curve down. So do that. And I was going to put spikes on the tail, but rather than moving all the spikes, I'm going to pose it first, and then I'll go and add the spikes. Tilt that down a little bit more. And if this is a little tedious as far as doing it this way rather than just using like the move tool or something, like you can obviously feel free to do that as well. So I might actually grab the move tool and just kind of give a little bit more of an organic twist to kind of something like that. Kind of, it's decent for now. And maybe if it is more relaxed, he actually probably would have it start to curve down, maybe from a little higher up. Something like that. All right. A little bit more finessing with the move tool just to kind of get it. I do have that ridge that's happening along the side here, so I can turn my mask off and try to get that ridge to... It's kind of the one defining muscle in the back of that tail is that ridge, which also kind of matches with the neck there. Okay, that works. So now I'm going to go and grab this leg. Might be a little bit harder to isolate the front legs because they contain the shoulder as well. But so what I can do is flip that, just paint a little bit of that onto the So we really want that joint to bend from the shoulder, and it doesn't need to be perfect, especially because we're going to blur the mask and we're going to flip it. And let's put that right on the shoulder, and let's go back with it just a little bit. And we'll go to that elbow. Blur that mask and pull that elbow back just a little bit too. Something kind of like that. You turn it out a notch. Put my ground on for a second just to check my weight. So I need to go and grab the ankle and just tilt it up a little bit. So blur that. And let's tilt that up. Something like that. Okay, cool. And then let's go line those claws up. So I'm going to turn the ground off for a second. And I can also look at it with transparency. I don't know how much that's going to help me, but at least I can get an idea kind of where the claws are at. Let's drop them down. Just a little bit. And voila. Okay, so that leg's a little bit of contrapposta as well. So I'm thinking I might show it something like at a 3/4 angle like this. Don't actually mind the head being straight on like that. I might give it a slight tilt to the side, maybe towards camera a little bit. Just a hint. And maybe this leg just to offset, oops, the contrapposta. I'm going to give this leg a tiny bit of forward motion. So it's kind of matching the weight of the back leg. So I'm going to go up and grab that shoulder, flip it. Let's blur that mask and let's grab that shoulder and just go forward with the leg a tiny bit. Actually, I'm not sure if I want to do that. I think weight-wise, I'm trying to get a good silhouette of how it will look when it's just standing like so. Okay. So not too crazy of a pose. Actually don't mind the head being straight, just for the angle that I'm going for. And then the rider, you know, I'm imagining will have kind of sword in hand, maybe hanging towards the ground, and then kind of cape hanging off to the side, and then you'll see her head maybe tilted towards us a little bit. So now that the pose is done, let's check, whoops, our high res. So we'll go back into geometry and let's up res this, and there we go. Kept all our details. I still have to put the claw on the thumb, but if we really wanted to, we could also check out camera angles from other views just to kind of see how it's looking. We could also play around with the, is the camera at a low angle? Usually when you have a quadruped and there's a floor, about the lowest you can get is right flat at the feet, like something like that. But is a more dynamic pose. Sometimes I'll show a tiny bit of a tilt so you can see the top a little bit, just so we can see a ground plane. So I do want to maybe add some spikes to the tail, but that is our basic pose for our mount, and now we'll put the rider on top. So we'll need to get the rider, the knight, and the creature in the same scene, but this is made of multiple pieces. And so now I'm going to start kind of breaking down. Ultimately, what I like to do is what's called a clown pass when I do an alpha. So essentially the body itself, which is the skin, will be its own subtool. And if you want to kind of see what I mean by that, if you were to grab a flat shader, there's like a flat in here, you can kind of see what I'm talking about is that the claws and the saddle and the teeth will all be a separate color in the mask. So we can assign leather or we can assign bone to the teeth and claws, but really all we need to do is make a mask. So it doesn't matter if the subtools are merged together. So to get this into the scene with the gal, and before we do that really quick, let's just save where we're at. And actually I'm going to save a posed version of that just so I can go back to a non-posed if I ever have to, even though this is probably not gonna need any readdressing edits or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to connect that. One thing I'll probably do really quickly is I'm going to add the skull to the body just to get that out of the way. So what I'll do is I'll select that, and if you want to kind of see, I'm going to be basically just to isolate these parts where I put scales on, so I'm going to split that. And this is a little bit tricky just as far as like how you want to merge the pieces together to isolate different material groups, and we'll get into that more with the keyshot demo. So we're going to split the skull, and then I'm going to actually bring this skull piece up into my character base, my creature base. Now I'm going to have to get rid of my subdivisions, which is fine because I like the pose, but again, I usually will like duplicate oh, that is the old one that's non-posed. Okay, so I've got this posed version. I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to merge it with the skull. So we're going to merge down. So now I've got the body of the creature being just one mesh, and then I can put teeth, claws, eyes, and saddle all together. So the best way to do that is if you literally just click on any other subtool and turn off that, and I want to keep all those together. So what you can do right here is merge visible, and then when you append that, it's right here. So now you basically have all that stuff together. And so what I'll do is I'll clone this piece. Let's go here to clone. And I'll also clone the body, which is this guy. Go up here to clone. Now if I move into my other scene, which is my knight, I already have it open, that's why it's in here. But if you haven't opened it yet, you can just load tool and bring in the character or whatever. Oh, looks like I lost my skull somehow. Right, 1 second here. Where did my skull go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So that's the one I want. Okay. So make sure you have the right one cloned. So my base mesh, I'm going to clone that. And then, like I said, I've got all my other pieces here. And I've cloned that. So those are really the two I need. If I want to kind of bring this down just so it doesn't get lost, I can kind of grab that one and bring it down to the bottom here. So I'm going to go into my knight now, and I'm going to bring the creature into the scene. I think I also want my floor. Oops. Somewhere, wherever you are. Okay, yeah, my floor. I'm going to clone that as well, so I don't have to recreate it. I can just bring it in. Okay, so now that I'm in the scene here, hopefully their sizes line up, and if not, that's okay. We can always rescale. So now that I'm in the scene with the girl, my knight, and I'm going to have to repose her. And as you know, I kind of talked about building her costume. This like undershirt probably won't work because I'll have to pose her, and then I'll basically edit or should I say reposition all of the armor over the posed figure. So there's going to be some cleanup in here with like merging basically, you know, armor pieces together that stay in the same subtool. So maybe I'll start cleaning that up, and then also you can go through and find like unused pieces and stuff. And so an example of what I mean by that is these belt buckles, for example, being leather, I probably would just connect them, you know, to like this belt, anything that's leather, like all these belt pieces would essentially be merged together into one subtool, and then when I pose it, I can have them be all together, so I don't have to have so many subtools in my folder here, or my my list of layers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to append, and let's just test this out and see if I bring that in. Should be down here at the bottom, and then if I were to press F. So obviously scale is a little off, so let's solo that. Okay, so it's really little, but that's okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to append our other pieces. I can turn solo off for a second. There's a few ways to do this, but just bear with me here. What I'll actually end up doing is probably just merging these together and then re-isolating the skull and the body. So that's fine, because I can always just... So I'm actually going to merge them together for a second. And then I'm going to... And this is the trick that I showed you before. If you go into deformation here, I'm going to turn solo off, and I'm going to press unify. Now, this is at a size where they kind of fit in the same world. So first and foremost, because all of my armor is kind of facing the direction. Now, obviously, some of you might have like just already been building these in the same scene, so you won't have this problem. But in my case, I built them in separate scenes. I want to keep her in symmetry because when I pose the figure, I'll want to use symmetry for a little bit. But so let's put this here and let's face that the right direction. And then we can also, there's a couple ways you can do scale. You can do it in here, which is, I believe, size. So you can just do it that way. Or you can just grab the scale tool here. And what we want to really do is just kind of play around with, in comparison, that the scale works. And like I said before, it is going to be sort of a horse-sized cat, as in like a big cat, like a lion, that she would be able to ride. So let's just think about how big. I don't want it to be too big, but I do like maybe something like that, about the shoulder of the cat being up to about the chest plate. And I can always adjust that, but that's probably what I'm thinking. And then I can kind of get it somewhat positioned to where she'll be sitting on the saddle, and then I can kind of scoot them over like that. And now I know, and actually, you know what I can do? I can almost get this positioned right to where she'll be sitting. And how that will help is I won't have to move too much of the armor around, because it's already kind of localized. So you can also kind of get an idea about like how far the feet will hang. And you can also kind of see her height as she sits on it. So that's pretty cool. So now I basically just got to get her posed. But we have them localized in the same scene now. And then I also had this other floor, but I'm actually just going to recreate another floor really quickly by appending a cube. And just giving me a ground plane that I can work with. Because I do probably need to correct the feet a little bit on the creature. And maybe I'm going to build a floor that I was going to show you guys how to do, like a rock that's cracked, like a stone floor or something like that. But so we've got the elements of our scene kind of in the same space. And the other thing I wanted to show you is how to separate, now that I've merged everything together on the creature. But really quick, I want to save this as my, it's called CCS Creature Mount V1. Put that on the desktop. So that's all saved together. So yeah, basically I'm just going to grab the compass here and isolate the body. So as you can see, the claws and the saddle, the skull I'll have to split and merge over. But so I do that, and then I can split that. And what that's done is now, put my other elements that are not the base of the creature as a separate subtool. And like I said, I probably will still put some like spikes, or some bigger scale elements along the ridge or something. And then the last thing I wanted to do is just grab that skull one more time, and you can solo it so you can kind of see that it is selecting just the skull. I'm going to split that, and now that I've got the skull, I can merge that back down into the base of the creature. So now it's all good. It's the right size. It's where I want it. It's posed, so creature's done. And now the last thing I'm going to show is the posing of our other character here, and that will be in the next video. And then I will get everything in its appropriate groups for exporting so that we can have everything separated by material. All right, I will be back with the next video. Thanks, guys.